Have you ever stopped at the door of a fancy restaurant and felt those looks measuring you from top to bottom? That feeling that everyone knew exactly how much you paid for your purse and that it clearly wasn't enough? That's what we're going to talk about today, and I guarantee you'll recognize yourself in at least one of these situations. Hi, I'm Carol, and welcome to Lucrative Elegance. If you want to learn how to transform your elegance into something profitable and have more success in life, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and leave that like. Because today we're going to talk about a truth that no one has the courage to say. The rich really only associate with people who look like them. And no, this isn't a coincidence, it's science. Did you know that researchers at Emory University discovered something fascinating? People with higher incomes spend 6.4 fewer nights socializing per year compared to people with low income. But here's the plot twist. When rich people socialize, they spend significantly less time with relatives and neighbors, but more time with friends. Translation: they carefully choose who they spend their time with. It's not meanness, it's strategy. Remember that classic American movie scene? Mean Girls, when Katie tries to sit with the plastics for the first time? Regina George didn't even need to say a word. Just one look up and down and everyone understood the message. The girls simply didn't have the group's visual codes. And you know what the harshest truth about this is? Having money frees people to connect socially with whomever they choose, instead of with whoever can provide resources. While we need to maintain relationships out of necessity, the neighbor who lends sugar, the cousin who can give a ride, they only keep those who add emotional or social value. But Carol, that's unfair. They don't even know me properly. Honey, that's exactly the point. They don't need to know you, because your appearance already told your entire story in 3 seconds. Have you noticed how Gwyneth Paltrow appeared in court in March 2023? Girl, that woman was being sued for a ski accident and showed up dressed like she was going to brunch in the Hamptons. Discreet camel coat, minimalist bag, zero logos. This is called quiet luxury. And it became a worldwide trend after that trial. You know why? Because she understood the game. Silent luxury emphasizes privacy, discouraging ostentatious displays of wealth that can make someone a target. It's the complete opposite of someone wearing a Gucci bag with a giant logo thinking they're being elegant. And here's where it gets interesting. Stealth wealth allows you to differentiate the ultra-rich from the nouveau riche or aspiring rich, who are more prone to flaunting expensive brands and famous designers. In other words, wearing that Louis Vuitton bag full of logos might be putting you in the wrong category. For those who have real money, this screams nouveau riche trying to prove something. Remember the series Succession? The characters wore clothes that cost a fortune but looked like they were bought at Target. It was intentional. Contemporary status symbols for the rich include inconspicuous designer clothes and discreet yet expensive jewelry. It's as if there's a secret code that only they know, and as long as you don't know the rules of the game, you'll keep being turned away at the door. But this doesn't mean you need millions to enter the club. It means you need to understand how they communicate through appearance. When wealthy merchants adopted high-status clothing, they weren't necessarily trying to usurp the nobility's position, but it was a way of saying, we deserve the same degree of social prestige and respect. They were using fashion as a form of social activism. The question is, do you want to stay outside looking through a window, or do you want to learn the rules and enter the game? Because look at what happens when you don't have the right codes. I've lived this myself. I remember once going to a corporate event thinking I was killing it with my basic black dress and my brand name bag. I got there and immediately realized I was out of place. Not because of the clothes themselves, but because of the details. The women who clearly belonged in that environment had something different. The blazer cut was more structured. The bag was discreet, but the leather had a quality you could perceive from afar. The shoes weren't just beautiful. They had a sole that revealed craftsmanship. Even the way they held their champagne glass was different. And you know what caught my attention the most? None of them were trying to get attention. It was exactly the opposite. They had this silent confidence of those who don't need to prove anything to anyone. It was that day I understood. True elegance whispers, it doesn't shout. Now, if you want to be an elegant and sophisticated traveler who knows how to behave in any environment in the world, take a look at my eBook, Be Elegant While Traveling. Global Etiquette for the Sophisticated Traveler. The link is pinned here in the comments, and I guarantee that after reading it, you'll never be in trouble in any situation again. But getting back to our subject, why do they only accept those who look like them? The answer lies in social psychology. The elite tends to be characterized by wealth, power, influence, education, and social status. And they protect this like a family inheritance. Think about Bridgerton, not the Netflix series, but the real Victorian England society that inspired the story. High society depended heavily on the people and social circles that surrounded them. Having the right servants, frequenting the right places, knowing the right people, this confirmed their status. And this hasn't changed that much. The difference is that today the codes are more subtle. For example, did you know that high-status people have greater latitude for deviation from norms and are relatively freer from social restrictions? That's why Mark Zuckerberg can appear in the American Congress in a gray t-shirt and be taken seriously. But if you did that in a job interview, there's even a name for this: red sneakers effect. Individuals show they don't need these benefits because they already have high status. They can break the rules precisely because they're already at the top. But to get there, you first need to prove you know the rules. And here comes an interesting contradiction. Although the concepts of quiet luxury and stealth wealth have been equated, there may be differences in usage. While stealth wealth connotes hiding wealth, quiet luxury connotes signaling wealth subtly. In other words, there's a difference between hiding that you have money and knowing how to show that you have it without being vulgar. And what's the difference? Quality of materials, impeccable cut, and zero screaming logos. Think about the difference between carrying a Hermes Birkin, which costs more than a car, and a Coach bag full of logos. The first one, only those who know recognize the value. The second one, everyone sees you're trying to show status. When excess is removed, what remains will be examined with greater attention. That's why simplicity is so hard to get right. There's nowhere to hide. But Carol, this is all very expensive. How am I going to manage? Calm down, my friend. You don't need to spend a fortune. You need to understand the codes. Quiet luxury is about investing in classic pieces. And this is where quiet luxury meets sustainability. Better to have 5 well-made pieces that last years than 20 that will fade in the first wash. The strategy is simple. Identify the environments where you want to be. Observe how people who belong to these spaces dress. Analyze the details. Not the brands, but the quality, the cut, the way the pieces fall on the body. And then, within your budget, invest in versions of these pieces that have the same visual language. Because what matters isn't how much you spent, it's whether you understood the message that those clothes transmit. Remember I talked about how rich people spend less time with relatives and neighbors, but more time with friends? This means their relationships are chosen, not obligatory. And this choice goes through the first filter. Do you visually fit into the group? It's like an audition for a theater play. It doesn't matter if you're the best actress in the world if you don't have the type they're looking for the role. The difference is that in real life you can change your type. And it's not about being fake or changing your personality. It's about understanding that nonverbal communication is language. And if you want to talk to a specific group, you need to speak their language. When a wealthy merchant adopted high-status clothing, they weren't necessarily trying to usurp the nobility's position, but it was a way of saying, we deserve the same degree of social prestige. That's exactly what you need to do. Use your appearance to communicate that you deserve to be in that space. And here's the secret no one tells you. Quiet luxury brands tend to align with old money aesthetics, prioritizing discreet elegance and timeless design over flashy logos and trendy pieces. Translation: they value a perfect white shirt made of Egyptian cotton more than a Balenciaga blouse with a giant logo. Because true elegance doesn't need to shout. It whispers with such confidence that everyone stops to listen. And you know what the irony of all this is? Dressing simply has become a status symbol. Simplicity became luxury. So stop trying to impress with brands and start impressing with quality. Stop trying to get attention and start commanding respect. Because in the end, the rich won't accept you because you wear the right bag. They'll accept you because you understood that belonging to a group is about communicating the same values. And what's the elite's #1 value? Discreet refinement. They don't want to know if you were born rich. They want to know if you understand the rules of the game, if you know how to behave, if you won't make a fool of yourself and, consequently, make them embarrassed. That's what your appearance communicates before you even open your mouth. So, my dear, next time you're choosing an outfit, don't think, what will make me look rich? Think, what will make me look confident, refined, and worthy of respect? Because that's the difference between trying to impress and actually belonging. And if you've made it this far, leave a comment telling me, what was the situation where you felt most out of place because of your appearance? You can be honest because this is a safe space for us to talk about it. But let me tell you something that can change your perspective forever about this subject. You know what I discovered studying elite behavior? They're not trying to exclude you out of malice. They're protecting something much more valuable than money, their social capital. C. Wright Mills, American sociologist, discovered that elite members accept each other, understand each other, marry each other, tend to work and think, if not together, at least similarly. It's a well-regulated existence where education plays a critical role. And here's the plot twist that changed my perspective. The new aspirational class is no longer defined by fancy cars or jewelry, but by much less conspicuous forms of consumption: children's education, organic food, cultural experiences. Remember when I talked about quiet luxury? Well, this goes far beyond clothes. It's about inconspicuous consumption. They spend money on things most people don't even realize are expensive. For example, while a common person might spend $200 on a blouse with a giant Gucci logo, fake, obviously a truly rich person spends $800 on an organic cotton t-shirt that looks basic but is handmade by Italian artisans. The difference? Only those who are in the circle know how to recognize it. And you know what the irony of all this is? Quiet luxury emphasizes privacy, discouraging ostentatious displays of wealth that can make someone a target. They learned that being discreet is a matter of security. That's why when you show up all dressed up with your brands and evidence, you don't look rich, you look nouveau riche. And nouveau riche, to them, is synonymous with not trustworthy. Because nouveau riche still needs to prove something. Old money already proved it long ago. Now, let's get to the practical part. How can you use this information to your advantage? First, invest in quality, not quantity. Choose noble fabrics and classic pieces that stand the test of time. A well-cut blazer in quality wool will serve you better than 10 trendy blouses. Second, proper table manners, appropriate dress codes for different occasions, and knowing the difference between casual, social, and formal are basic knowledge that the upper class masters. Third, develop your cultural capital. Familiarize yourself with arts, literature, global history, and classical music. You don't need to be an expert, but you need to know how to talk about these subjects without seeming like you're pretending. And here's the secret no one tells you: authenticity is the new currency of the elite. They value genuine connections more than ever. This means it's no use pretending to be who you're not, but it also means you can use your authenticity as a competitive advantage. I'll give you a practical example. I met a woman who worked as a receptionist but frequented the same circles as millionaire entrepreneurs. How? She specialized in contemporary art. She became the person everyone looked for when they wanted an opinion on art investment. She didn't pretend to have money. She developed knowledge that people with money valued. And you know what happened? 3 years later, she was managing the art collection of one of the entrepreneurs. Today, she has her own art consulting business and makes over $50,000 a month. She understood the game. It's not about having money to belong to the group. It's about adding value to the group. Because in the end, true elegance is never forced, but cultivated, refined, and deeply rooted. And here's my final tip for you. Stop trying to impress and start expressing. Impressing is about what others think of you. Expressing is about who you really are. The elite doesn't want to be impressed. They've seen it all. They want to be surprised by genuine authenticity, combined with natural sophistication. It's the difference between a woman who wears a pearl necklace because she saw it in a magazine and a woman who wears a pearl necklace because it belonged to her grandmother and has a story. Both might be wearing identical pearls, but only one of them is telling a story worth hearing. And story, my dear, is what separates those who belong from those who are just visiting. So next time you're choosing an outfit, don't think, does this make me look rich? Think, does this tell my story elegantly? Because in the end, the rich don't want to know how much money you have. They want to know if you're interesting enough to deserve their time. And time, for those who have a lot of money, is the only true luxury. So tell me here in the comments, what's your story? What makes you unique and interesting beyond your appearance? Because that's the conversation that really matters. And if you want to delve deeper into this subject, don't forget to take a look at my ebook on global etiquette. The link is pinned down here. See you in the next video.